The basic thing about playing the guitar is the pleasure you get from it. There's nothing wrong with pleasure, is there? There's so many awful things going on in this world every second of every day that perhaps playing the guitar is one of the more harmless activities. That just about sums it all up. Nothing more complicated than that. If Mr. Reagan and Mr. Brezhnev, two rather dreary men, played the guitar for a bit of relaxation, and once a year gave a duet concert for the benefit of the United Nations, perhaps the world would be a little more peaceful, a little more enchanting. Know what I mean? This is the closing paragraph in this book that I've been reading, A Life on the Road, Julian Bream, A Life on the Road. This is the fourth video installment in which I kind of discuss the chapters in this book. If you want to see the other videos, I'll place links at the bottom in the description. There are 3 other installments. Basically, I read this book for the first time some 20 years ago. I am a classical guitarist. That's my main instrument. So anything about the classical guitar, I'm really passionate about. And I read this some 20 years ago. I rented it from, I borrowed it from the local public library. And about a year ago, I found a copy online. This is not in print anymore, so it's quite valuable. I bought it for, I think, $36 and some change. It's hardcover in very good condition. Now, my last episode was done, I think, in July. It was a beautiful sunny day outside sitting with my drink. I was going to do this outside today and finish the series, but I couldn't because of this. So I'm sitting here inside instead with my mug of hot coffee, and it's all cozy in here and comfortable. So I want to close up the series by briefly discussing the last 4 chapters, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Beginning with chapter 9, this chapter is titled Minimizing the Squeak, and here he is talking about recording, making records, which for Julian Bream was a very important task for him. Segovia and Julian Bream produced so many records that inspired literally millions of guitarists, this one included. So in this chapter, and some chapters before actually, he talks about the art of recording and the challenges of recording and the challenges of capturing that musical moment that you wanna kind of bottle up and hold on to it and give it to somebody else and share with somebody else. And he's talking in this chapter mainly about challenges of recording live music, and talking about how he liked to record in a large cathedral for some of his records, and about producing, like, post-production and things of that nature. Very interesting chapter. Chapter 10, I had forgotten, this is just 20 years ago when I read the book last, I had forgotten about this chapter. I'm Romanian. I was born and raised in Romania. It's a small, kind of insignificant country in Eastern Europe. And in this whole chapter, he talks about a visit to Romania in the mid-80s. He doesn't give a precise date, I don't think he does, but this is written in the mid-80s, and the signature at the end of the book, the paragraph that I just read, I think it says it says 1982. So at the beginning of the 80s, he visited Romania. I was born in 73, so I must have been like 10 years old maybe. Maybe younger than that, and he visited Bucharest. In Romanian we pronounce it București, and it was such a special chapter for me to read, even though it wasn't the best of experiences for him. You know, there were lots of challenges with getting to the venue and getting a lunch and a dinner, and getting interviewed by random people in a cab ride. So it was quite funny for me to read, but it was also a very heartwarming, because it brought some nice memories of my home country. There's a couple of pictures in here of venues that a venue that he played at in Bucharest, and I have some friends who grew up in Bucharest, so I'm going to take this book literally and ask them. I have a couple ideas what the venue must have been. I did play in one of them in a tour in the late 90s, but I don't think this is that. It looks like a different place that I knew about but I never visited, so I'm going to have to find out. Very interesting chapter. Here's the picture of the random reporter who jumped in the cab ride and interviewed Julian Bream, an unsolicited interview. The next chapter kind of talks about how Julian Bream liked to be, how he was a loner. He preferred to be with fewer people than many, rather than many people. And he was kind of a loner, always by himself. And so maybe that's one reason why living a life on the road kind of worked for him. I am happily married with children, and even though I'm not as good as Julian Bream and never will be as good as Julian Bream, I don't think I could live a life of traveling and playing from place to place. It's just not for everybody. So, and then the last chapter, he kind of concludes everything by reiterating some of the things he discussed throughout the book. It's not written by him. It's written by Tony Palmer, but it's written in Julian's voice. Again, they close the book by talking about how, for example, after a concert, Julian Bream would prefer not to be surrounded by people. Here's a funny picture where all these people wanted to talk to him and ask him questions, and he would rather not during an intermission. And the capture here for the picture says, "Can't stand to be with them before or after a concert," which was pretty funny to me. I did meet Julian Bream. I think I said that in my first video, and I did have an autograph from him, and I shook his hand, and I know that's special, right? Well, it is. And he seemed to be a very friendly person, but maybe he was just putting a front. Maybe he just couldn't wait for all of us to get out of his way so he can go have his glass of water and just chill out. So the book kind of ends by talking about his life on the road and kind of wrapping things up and talking about the joys of making music. Unfortunately, Julian Bream passed away a little while ago, a couple of months ago. I made a video on that too. I'll place a link at the bottom if you want to watch it. But he kind of wraps things up in the book by talking about the pure joy of making music. I really enjoyed it. I will read it again for sure. I guess I had two things that I really liked throughout the book. One was the interactions with different people. Some were funny, some were sometimes he came across as a rude person. I don't think he was a rude person. I think he was just very straightforward and honest. So if he didn't want to talk to you, he'd just tell you, "I don't want to talk to you right now," which is kind of neat actually. And then the other thing I liked in the book was just the way that he brought music in a real light, instead of trying to paint it with a color that it's not. So he talks about making mistakes, and he talks about being nervous, and he talks about not being prepared before a concert or a performance or a recording, and he talks about having memory slips, and he talks about financial struggles, and he talks about physical struggles, and he struggled with some issue with his ear which caused him to lose his balance and get dizzy. So I loved to see the humanity of Julian Bream in this book, and he doesn't try to paint a picture of himself that is inaccurate. So in that way, any guitarist in the world can relate to him. So that was encouraging. I highly recommend this book. Now, if you can find it somewhere, I would buy it. If you can find it at the local library, I would rent it out and read it. I'm gonna hold on to this probably forever, and then when I'm old and can't read anymore, maybe I'll give it to my kids or somebody like that. So, anyways, go listen to some Julian Bream music. You can Spotify him, you can YouTube him, and listen to some Bach, some Spanish music. Listen to Britain's Nocturnal. Listen to some lute music that he recorded, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Thanks for watching the video. Have a wonderful day. Take care.